Hello, everybody. What'd you think of that? I made a little intro. Yeah, I made a little intro today. So that was fun. Welcome to Comic Tropes After Dark. I'm your host, Chris, and this is specifically the weekly spinner rack. It's an opportunity every week to check in on the latest comic book news, do some comic book reviews, or at least take a quick look at some of the cool books that have come out this week. And sometimes there's interviews. This week, no, we're going to focus on the news. We're going to look at, I got a humongous, these are all comics that I got this week. Look at this. That's a big stack. I mean, Saga, Ultimate X-Men, Absolute Flash, Absolute Batman. I picked up Out of Alcatraz and Assorted Crisis Events and Bug Wars. So many great books to talk about. So, we'll do news, we'll do comics, and then, if there's time, we'll do a little inking and chat with everybody. So, let me do some shout-outs to folks that were here from the very beginning, and appreciate y'all being here. Thank you. It's what makes the show fun to do, that there's an audience. Let's see. Howdy. A vaporware intro, exactly. I did put in a new intro. I just thought it would be fun to do something a little different. Hey, it's my sister. Hi, Jeannie. And I'll try to do like a few more little video pieces as I find time to carve out to just do segments and stuff like that. And maybe at some point an outro video. But, right now I just did a little intro. I wanted to do something fun. So, I don't think I've got anything else. I'll just do a quick plug. This Wednesday, I will be doing a signing at Stargazer Comics in Tacoma, Washington. That's from 4 to 6 p.m. And the reason? This week, Radiant Black issue 32 comes out. I have a very small backup that I wrote and drew in the back of that. Stargazer will also have things like the Vampirella cover that I did for Dynamite. And I will have some of the indie books and original art just in case somebody is a big enough fan that wants anything like that. That would be flattering. But I think it'll be a good time. I'm excited. No matter what, it's just fun to hang out in a comic book store and chat with the folks there. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. And without any further ado, I am going to bring up the news of the week. Starting with, let's see. I want to make this... No, that's not the one. I'm just checking something, folks, real quick. That's not bad. I thought that I had one where, it was much bigger. Huh. Oh, well. I'll go with this. I think that works. I might ink a little of that tonight, too. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hello. And yo, and happy Monday, and aloha. What do we got this week? Tell you what, first of all, the Diamond distribution auction, that's going on today in New York City. Actually, I should have said it did go on today because I'm forgetting the time difference. I'm on West Coast time. So that has gone on, but it's spreading into tomorrow. It's now a 2-day event. This is the bank that hosts that auction there in New York. So, yeah, it'll now stretch into tomorrow. So we'll probably hear some stuff by Wednesday or something. We'll start hearing some news of who bought what. Heidi McDonald from The Beat, a great comic book news site, she tried to attend as press, but it was closed to only approved bidders. So they didn't have basically the room or anything for other people to go in and see it. You had to already be approved as a bidder. And that was the only room that they had. Also, just related to it, Diamond did get approval from the bankruptcy court to get an additional $3.7 million loan from one of their creditors, JP Morgan Chase, and that allowed them to buy more inventory to just keep things running. So right now they are still running. What book did you do the lettering on, and will you have it at your signing? Oh, if I thought ahead, I guess I could have, but I won't have physical copies of it. It's called Lauxor, Lauxor, and it's available through Marcosia. Anyway, $5 in a Dream. No, I don't think that they're going to have anything for that. But you know what? I mean, I bet someday they might be selling off, their brooms and mops and stuff. So who knows? No, I am not bidding. We have to wait until tomorrow to find out if Todd McFarlane did anything. Yeah, there were rumors earlier in the week, but I don't feel like that really amounted to a whole lot. And he's got his LA WonderCon convention appearance with Jim Lee. He and Jim Lee are doing that. It feels like that would have either gotten bumped or delayed or something like that if he had more going on. I don't know. I guess if I had to put money on it, I don't think Todd McFarlane's buying any of this stuff. He may have expressed interest at one point. That may have been where the rumors started, but we won't know until later in this week. Moving on, travel to the U.S. It looks like there's the potential that it could bring challenges to people from abroad. Let's get into that. So first of all, I'll start with some good news, okay? Artist Becky Burke. She was the UK artist who was backpacking through North America. She tried to go into Canada, had problems with her work visa. When she came back, she got detained by ICE. That's our immigration enforcement thing, or I don't know exactly what ICE stands for off the top of my head. Immigration something, whatever. They arrested her, and she was in a facility for 20 days, but she did get released. She is now home. That's good news, okay? That's good news. Comiccon.com posted sort of a follow-up article going into this, and they outlined a problem. Becky, what she had basically done, it seems anyway, that had gotten her in trouble, was not that she, had just like something missing on her visa. It's that she was here on a travel visa, but she did work. She did work to like earn her board. She was staying at a house as compared to like a hotel. She's trying to keep her expenses down. Well, when you earn money specifically, you have to have a work visa, not just a travel visa. And that brings up this potential problem. So it's always been treated as a gray area where, people from abroad come to a convention, a comic convention. That's our world. That's what I'm talking about specifically. And they're selling books, right? Technically, you could argue that requires a work visa, and it's always been just sort of like overlooked because we're not talking about humongous dollar amounts. The case of Becky Burke indicates that maybe the government could be cracking down on something like that. And I don't know if Canada would be as well. Canada did decline to let her enter their country, for instance. There's a little bit more to this, however. I want to add a little nuance, okay? UK citizens, when they visit the US, every country has different ways of treating how we travel abroad. It seems like all you need is a passport, you book the flight. No, you're technically filling out paperwork when you go between countries. What the UK does is they fill out something called ESTA, and I'm sorry, I don't know what that stands for. It does allow for somebody traveling to conduct what's called temporary business, okay? That may actually cover what you're doing at a convention. You're doing temporary business as compared to doing actual work. Becky was actually doing like chores and cleaning and stuff to earn her room and keep, and that may have been what triggered this problem. So convention stuff might be okay, but I would say if you're from abroad and you're considering going to a Comic-Con, I would look very, very carefully at any of the documentation that that you'll be signing and filling out. maybe you could, for instance, you could maybe be on a panel. You could be at a booth selling this stuff. But if you are taking that money, that might be a problem. I don't know. I'm not an expert here. Thanks, Brunson. Nice having you here, and I appreciate you. Okay, ESTA stands for Electronic System for Travel Authorization. They try to make it easy, So like I say, this is not big bucks, right? So, like, is the government likely to all of a sudden, like, do some sort of an ICE raid at New York Comic Con? I would say that's super, super unlikely. But it does feel like we're operating in a gray area, and what happened with Becky just makes me want to point this out to people to warn them and let them do their research. Talk to a travel agent, maybe, at the very least. Okay. I wish I had better news. I don't want to scare people. This isn't necessarily, I'm not necessarily trying to indicate, hey, everybody's going to be rounded up. Hopefully that's not what it indicates. But something serious happened here. I feel terrible that Becky spent like 3 weeks in jail. Like, that's terrible. So just wanted to point it out. I'm going to move on. Let's talk about this. I thought that these numbers were very impressive for a very specific reason. Invincible Universe Battle Beast is coming real soon, and we now know, because it hit final order cutoff, they got basically 400,000 copies in orders. Already an impressive number. It gets more impressive in context, because that is a high benchmark I'd have to go back and look at my history to see when the last time a creator-owned book sold that many for first printings, because that's the difference here. This is a creator-owned book. It is not based on an existing intellectual property, and it is not from, like, one of the big two, Marvel or DC. So this is surpassing stuff like the first print of Absolute Batman or Batman Hush 2 with Jim Lee. Jimothy Lee is coming back. Pretty humongous. Yes, that is something to factor in. There are a lot of variant covers here, and I'm going to mention that. But that's a huge number. That's a huge number when you consider that it's competing with stuff like Batman. Like, Batman has a lot of name recognition, and comic book stores order appropriately. Yes, sorry, I said Jimothy. That is Dave's joke. That is Dave's joke. Even more impressive, DC was selling those Batman books at discounts to the retailers because they wanted to goose those numbers. Like, if you can say, hey, Batman sold 400,000 copies, that's news for people like me or other websites out there that cover this stuff. There was no discount on these books. The only thing I will point out as far as, like, marketing goes, and I think that this is actually a very interesting idea. I'm curious if anyone else will try this. They did offer something called a blind bag variant. And what that means is some of these come in a literal blind poly bag. And inside, there could be any of the variant covers, including the rarest one, which is a 1 in 1,000 ratio variant. So they're sort of combining variant covers with the fun of, like, mystery boxes or blind boxes. That may have goosed the numbers a little. It depends on the store and what their audience likes, It's an interesting idea. But I don't think it's the same as, like, selling it at a discounted price. Anyway, since the Invincible show started back in 2021, Image and Skybound have sold over 1 million copies of Invincible trade paperbacks and omnibuses. Really good numbers. Really, really healthy. Something is Killing the Children did that, 3 covers in bags. And you didn't know which one you'd get? Okay. Yeah, hey, you don't have to participate. Some people really enjoy it, is all I can say. And I have to admit, I sort of like some things that are blind bags. Like I liked, what do I have here? I was in Japan and I came across a store that had these Squid Game things, and you don't know which one you're gonna get, and I open it up and I got I got like one of the soldiers, and I'm like, so I do some of that blind bag stuff. I don't care as much about variant covers unless they're easy to get and I think it looks cool. If it's at cover price and I can get it, sometimes I'll do that. But that's not my area where I collect. 1 million is great numbers. Great. I think it's going to be a fun book, and I'm just really impressed with those numbers. I'm really impressed. I don't have a lot more to say until the book comes out. I'm excited to read it personally. Robert and Ryan work together great. Do it. Draw it. It's a fun character. A lot of Marvel series are not lasting 2 full years right now. They're pulling the plug on a bunch of them. I only have a few examples here, but I wanted to talk about that. So, this is doing it in weird order. There we go. Last May, you may remember, Marvel's president Dan Buckley had said he didn't want to do 4 or 5 issue approvals. He was approving books for like 10 issues at a time, almost a full year. He's trying to give them room to breathe. And I appreciate that. I think that's nice. This week, X-Men editor Tom Brevoort confirmed that Exceptional X-Men is going to go past 10 issues. He's talking about issues 11 and 12. But to be fair, we did see that most of the X-Men, not most, a bunch of the X-Men titles did get canceled right after issue 10. NYX, X-Factor, X-Force. I don't think anybody's that upset. 10 issues is still like, they gave it a good try, I would say. They didn't abandon it too fast, but it's not like it's going that much longer than 4 or 5. It's doubling it. Storm looks cool. Phoenix didn't hook me with issue 1, so I bailed on it. But if it's good, I'm happy that it's continued. Obviously, I've got something other than X-Men as like my little representative image. I wanted to mention that there were a few books that made it a little further than 10 issues. But Spectacular Spider-Man this week we learned is going to end with issue 15. And Spider-Boy is ending with issue 20. One caveat there, the writer and co-creator of the character, Dan Slott, he is moving over to DC to write a Superman book. So that may have more to do with Dan leaving than anything else. I mean, he was the one pushing it and all. So, let's see. NYX wasn't canceled. It just became Giant Size X-Men Annuals. That's one way of looking at it. Let's see. Anyone watching live or video on demand, if you can click on the thumbs up to the channel, it really helps. That's true. It always does. I appreciate the kind words. Oh, yes. Wait, was that called Spider-Boy as well? I'd totally forgotten that. That's interesting to think about, in that all those amalgam characters, Doctor Strange Fate and I don't know what else, Swamp Bat or something, Bat Thing. There were all sorts of weird ones. Super Soldier. Weren't those all trademarks that were co-owned by both companies? But obviously Marvel was able to do their own Spider-Boy. That's just sort of interesting. They may have already had that name carved out. They may have thought about that when they created Spider-Woman and stuff. Yeah, Dark Claw. Couple people mentioning. Huh. Hey, let's see what this upcoming crossover event does for Marvel and DC. And it seems like there's a good amount of people that would enjoy seeing Amalgam make a return. The I don't know. Amalgam was fun. Amalgam was fun because they put their best artists and writers on things, and also it was just one issue. So like they could like throw in all their best ideas and they didn't have to worry about like continuing it. You know what I mean? So like it never had time to get bad. That helps for its memory. Something that popped in my head. Godzilla comics. I've got some pieces of news for. I think that this is a lot of cool stuff. First of all, Marvel confirmed the final 2 comics in their series of one-shots. They were going to do 6 one-shots with Marvel heroes going up against Godzilla. We heard this week Godzilla versus Avengers and Godzilla versus Thor. Those are the last 2. Each issue will be set in a past decade as well. So they're starting with Fantastic Four in the 60s against Godzilla. Then Hulk is the 70s, Spider-Man for the 80s, X-Men for the 90s. We've got the new Avengers lineup for the aughts, and then Thor in the 10s. It's sensible. That's when each of these things were sort of at their height. I love that they can do that. I don't know if that seems to me to indicate that there won't be an ongoing continuity, that there truly are one-shots just set in that era. I definitely think these will be collected into a trade. Yes, I expect it to do well. Well, let me get there. Nice to see you as well, by the way. Bronze Age Nerd also has a great YouTube show where he does like news and a topic and stuff, and that comes on at 8 p.m. on his channel, as well as Big B McFly, the comic book guy, and the EXP. They stream to 3 places. So the Avengers book said that it will also include, Fin Fang Foom and Jet Jaguar. So one of the giant kaiju from Marvel Comics and a giant robot from the Godzilla movies. That's cool. That's cool to me. I say as somebody that's a fan of Jet Jaguar, as you saw when I was inking last week. And then Thor will include the Hand imbuing Godzilla with the power of the Beast. That's their sort of dark god. And it's going to be written by Jason Aaron. Jason Aaron had a really long run on Thor throughout the 10s. So that feels like a really good fit, actually. That's really cool. Black costume Spidey fought the cat-faced Godzilla. It does look like they may do different Godzilla designs for each era, so we'll see. No Red Ronin yet. Maybe, but I didn't see any mention. Oh, I mean, can you only imagine? But then again, we're sort of using the Thor from like the 10s, so I don't know. But I would love it. I would always take any Walt Simonson art. I don't know, probably. But he's doing that in the Ultraman Avengers books, so yeah. I love the idea of Jet Jaguar and Fin Fang Foom. Even if they're like probably just by necessity, they're probably going to be small parts of the story. You got to fit in Godzilla and the Avengers, so that doesn't leave a lot of room for side characters. But we'll see. It sounds to me like a fun project. It really does. Oh, also Godzilla news. Not the Marvel crossover one, but IDW is doing their series of Godzilla versus, and then they have Godzilla destroying like a famous American city. And all the stories in those are written by people that have lived in that city or are strongly associated with it, or they're from there. So anyway, IDW announced that the Godzilla versus America Los Angeles book will donate 100% of the profits to the Book Industry Charitable Foundation. Considering Los Angeles is still recovering from, and will be for a long time, those wildfires, Bink specifically is a nonprofit that helps bookstores and comic book stores that have been, well, they help them in a number of ways. One way they help them is recovering from like a natural disaster. So that's pretty amazing. IDW said for that book, everything goes to Bink. Wow. Pretty generous, in my opinion. I love Godzilla in general. I love Godzilla. You think it should be drawn by Olivier Coipel? I have the hardest time saying his name. Godzilla destroys Los Angeles by tossing a cigarette butt out the car window. That's borderline offensive. I'm canceling your show. All right, moving on. Fantastic Four is going to reboot. I don't know what else to call it. What do you call it when a book keeps going? Like there's no break in, but they start with a new number one. I mean, I've seen them do that with what I really loved She-Hulk. Rainbow Rowell stayed on writing. It just like went 12 issues and then it just sort of started with another number one. Whatever. If that's what they need to do to keep a book selling okay, I'll deal with that, you know, if it really helps that much. A relaunch, that's a better word probably, isn't it? It's not a reboot because it's not starting over. Yeah, relaunch is a much better word. I didn't think of that. I didn't pull out my thesaurus. You all caught me. I'm guilty. I didn't say Rainbow Road. I said Rainbow Rowell, the writer. She's very, very successful. I don't love it when, they renumber things. I don't. I also get confused. But if it's what it takes in this marketplace to sell the books, I'll deal with it. So anyway, what's happening with it? First of all, Marvel is kicking off a new direction for them in July, of course, right before the movie comes out. They want to make a big to-do of it. That's sensible. That's just common sense marketing. Coapol? Okay, thank you. The subtitle is Worlds Unknown. So, what's happening? First of all, good news for me, because I like Fantastic Four a lot right now. It's still going to be written by Ryan North, and artist Humberto Ramos is going to join as the artist. New number one, but new Fantastic Four. And, of course, there's a new idea to go with it. So the story is going to apparently follow out of the One World Under Doom event, which is fortunately also sort of being overseen by Ryan North, which means that it connects very well to the Fantastic Four, as I think something with Doctor Doom should. Somehow, each of the team is going to be sent to a wildly different time period. So they're going to be completely separated and alone and searching for a way to reunite. It means that they're going to have to, really put on their science hats and be smart about things. That sounds interesting. That sounds interesting. Separating each of the Fantastic Four, because to understand what makes them work, sometimes you have to take away an important element. One of the most important elements of the Fantastic Four is that they're family, they're friends, Another aspect, of course, is that they're scientists and explorers. So we're going to focus a little bit more on one aspect and take away another aspect and see how do they work in that kind of an environment. There's been plenty of stories here and there where one member gets, isolated or killed for a while. But I like the idea of all four of them being alone and trying to reunite. I think it sounds cool. Will Ben be Blackbeard again? Right, the very first time travel story. He just put on like a beard and everyone was like, yeah, this isn't an orange rock, man. This is definitely a pirate. No question. I love that in the world of the Fantastic Four, or apparently Ninja Turtles, humongous guys can put on a trench coat and a fedora, and everyone's like, nothing to see here. That's clearly just a large man walking down the streets. Well, I would argue that it's not that case. I would say that the Fantastic Four is more than one thing. I think every character that's well-rounded is more than one thing. So we're going to take away a piece of it and see how it works. Of course, they'll get back together someday. It's the Fantastic Four, you know? I like the idea, but I also like plenty of stories where, you know, for a while, a hero has an important element taken away. You know, Captain America has the rights to be Captain America taken away, and he still becomes a hero. He's Nomad, right? There have been stories where a hero's identity has been outed, or they've lost their superpowers, or they've lost their job and their identity. I mean, Daredevil Born Again, it was all about him losing everything that he was and still coming back. So I think it can work. I think it can work as a story. I think it's a classic story. That's a great point. I sort of forgot that you're right. Like Reed and Sue were together, but Ben and Johnny had each sort of gone their separate ways for a while, and it was about them getting reunited and how much they love. So yeah, it's a little bit of deconstruction. It's a little bit of like, you know, just giving them a hurdle, taking away something important. I've always said, you know, I would love to do a story where, I don't know, for instance, what if Doctor Strange's hands were healed so he could be a surgeon again? Or what if Superman, as powerful as he was, you know, got a concussion somehow and he like really couldn't risk for a while being physical? You know, things like that. Take some element away and see how the hero overcomes and is still heroic. It's just an idea. What else? Giant Size Spider-Man has added some talent behind it. So this is coming in June. Marvel's been doing these giant size anniversary issues for their characters lately. And so, of course, they're doing one for Spider-Man. I bet they do a bunch of them because this one's specifically The Amazing Spider-Man. It's going to have 3 stories. We've got Kevin Smith and Giuseppe Camuncoli. I don't know. That's probably Italian. I don't know how to pronounce it. For a Spider-Man and Fantastic Four story. Al Ewing and Mark Buckingham are doing a story that is going to take place across an entire decade, featuring Spider-Man and some of his friends. And finally, we've got Chip Zdarsky and artist Cafu introducing a new character that they say is going to be very important for the future. Let's wait and see if that actually holds to be true. And obviously the cover here is by Greg Capullo. So Marvel's definitely lucky to have some of these people. All of their artists, I'm realizing these days, are all from abroad where the US dollar is going further. Everybody is like, you know, from Argentina, Italy, Spain, the Philippines, Japan. You know, Greg Capullo and John Romita Jr. are obviously artists at Marvel, but who else? I don't know. The guy in the red coat is Win from the book Gods. Boy, did I find that forgettable, I have to admit. And I love Jonathan Hickman. I just could not get into that one. What else? Dr. Aphra is returning to Star Wars. I love Dr. Aphra, one of my favorite Star Wars characters. So it's going to be called Dr. Aphra Chaos Agents. Technically, I guess it would be called Disney's Marvel's Star Wars Dr. Aphra Chaos Agent, something like that. So it's going to be the second title that Marvel has in their new era of Star Wars stories, which are all set after Return of the Jedi. They haven't explored that time period yet. So, yeah, something new. We don't know exactly what will happen with some of these supporting characters. It's going to be written by Cherish Chen. I liked her work on Radiant Red. Artist is Gabriel Guzman. Not familiar, sorry. Coming out mid-June, obviously. Main cover here by regular in the chat. I haven't seen him tonight, but EJ Sue. And so that's not a variant. That's just the main cover. Congrats, EJ. getting to draw Star Wars is still pretty cool. I like that. The character, if you've never read it, I just throwing this out there because I really do like Dr. Aphra. Debuted in the Darth Vader comic all the way back in 2015. So she's been around for 10 years now. And Dr. Aphra is really cool. She's an archaeologist in the Star Wars universe, but she's not necessarily anywhere near as noble as Indiana Jones. And you could even argue Indiana Jones was sort of not respectful to some history, like raiding from other cultures and bringing it back to a museum. But Dr. Aphra is always sort of in it for herself to make money or something. And she's always getting herself in so much trouble that like she's always being chased by multiple parties and staying just one step ahead of them. It's really, I think that it's always been a fun book, you know, getting chased by characters like Darth Vader or various gangsters and like not being able to go to the Republic for help. It's crazy. I did mention it right at the beginning, but I appreciate the additional plug. Yes, I will be signing at Stargazer Radiant. EJ cover, you say? EJ's so talented. Yeah, I feel like I haven't seen anything from Cherish since Radiant Red, so I'm not sure. I'm sure she's been doing something like that. Chloe Bennett? Sure, I could see that. Let's see. The first story, as we can sort of guess from this cover, is going to involve Dr. Aphra teaming with Luke Skywalker to track down a rare artifact. So we'll see how she gets along there. I hope so. It's certainly a huge addition to Star Wars lore. She didn't end up in live action yet, but some of the other characters from the comics, like Black Chrysanthemum has. How do you say that one, Dave? I know David Davenger can't pronounce Black Chrysanthemum. I think that Dr. Aphra is, I don't know if this is controversial. I think she's a lot cooler than Mara Jade. I never found Mara Jade all that interesting. You know, like she worked for the Emperor for about like a book and a half. And then she was just like a good guy. And she was just like Luke's wife. Hey, he's got this backup Jedi back home. When she's not cooking for him, he's got another Jedi he can call on. I just never found her that interesting. Anybody see the trailer for Andor Season 2? That is some good Star Wars. It's much more serious than like the main movies, but goddamn do I love it. I can't wait. Next month. DC's universe is getting a whole new history book. Oh my gosh. Oh, and I'm almost jealous because what an experience you're going to have. Fantastic TV show. Really, really well done. Really good. All right. This looks cool to me. DC announced new history of the DC universe. It's going to be a 4-issue limited series written by Mark Waid. Obviously, writes a lot for DC. Long, extensive history on multiple characters, especially the Flash. I would argue that Mark Waid is also a comic historian. You know, he knows his stuff. And it's going to outline the history of DC's, I'll call them continuities, just because we've had Crisis and, you know, New 52 and stuff like that. But it's going to go through the whole history as seen through the eyes of the Flash, Barry Allen. Debut issue is going to feature art by Jerry Ordway and Todd Knock. And they're going to show Barry Allen's journey from the birth of the DC universe to the rise of the Justice Society. Golden Age heroes. Important aspect. We're going to have to like really narrow down and focus on this stuff, but yeah. Covers by Chris Somney, Dan Mora, Ryan Sook, Mike Cho. Fantastic. Really, really good covers anyway. And they're all like double page spreads. So that's fun. That's really cool. DC has rebooted a fair amount. Let me think. Let's see. 1, 2, 3? 3 reboots? 3 firm reboots, right? Crisis, New 52, Rebirth. Am I right? Anyway. I mean, they've done other, like, things to try to clean up their continuity, like 0 Hour, but I wouldn't call that a reboot. Starman, heck yeah. We're doing Golden Age stuff. Heck yeah. I'm so polite. We have more DC stuff. Their compact comics are doing incredible, which I think proves that an affordable comic is still hugely attractive to a large part of the population. I think it's about getting a good value for your entertainment dollar. But let's get into this. So, DC's compact comics line launched in June of 2024. Okay, we just got some data on sales for 2024 since that year just closed, but that means only half the year was it being sold, okay? And it accounts for a massive chunk of DC's sales. Bookstore sales figures were released by the market research firm Circana. ICV2 got them, but you have to be like a subscriber to read all the data. Honestly, unless you're super into it like me, it might not be the most interesting reason. I'm going to try to just condense some of the most important information from it. First of all, the top 20 best sellers dominated by DC, 37% market share in the top 20, with the compact comics line accounting for almost half of those. Not bad. So, the compact comics edition of Watchmen, this is one good example. Compact comics edition of Watchmen, it actually outsold the full-size edition by 21%. And keep in mind, it only sold for 6 months, whereas the full-size edition was on sale for the full year. But the compact comics edition outsold it. And then you'd think, okay, well, is it cannibalizing those sales? Is it eating into the full-size? Nope. 2023 sales for the full-size edition were only about 100 more copies than what they sold in 2024. So about the same. About the same. That's really impressive. Hey, Rebellious Monkey, thanks for the super chat. I enjoyed your recent videos on Frank Frazetta and Stuart Immonen. They have been the most inspiring for me. Thank you. I love doing deep dives on artists and their techniques. So thank you. That's really, really cool. I appreciate the support. That's really, really kind of you. I'll try to do more. So anyway, of course it's successful. What else has it done? Trust me, other places are noticing. We've got among the top 20 bookstore bestsellers in 2024, DC's compact comics line alone accounted for 15% of sales by units, with Marvel as a whole accounting for just 12%. So DC's just their compact lines outsold all of Marvel's stuff in bookstores. Wow. And in just 6 months. In just 6 months. And trust me, Marvel noticed because they launched a similar line this past February. So let's see what happens the end of this year. Also, Oni is getting into it. And I didn't even mention Saga also did a compact comics version, so Image is getting into it, but Oni is going after that market with upcoming a 248-page Rick and Morty collection for the same as what the compact comics sell, $9.99. $10 is just such a great price point for a big, thick book. I'm so impressed. I love seeing stuff like that. Maybe we need to change up the dominant format, you know? There's nothing to say that individual floppies need to go away, but, you know, manga size stuff, if you can sell it cheaper, pretty darn good. Yes. Let's see. Stepan? Is that how I pronounce it? I tried to practice after the last live stream. Stepan? I hope I got that right. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the super chat. I have to go, but have a good stream. I will. Thanks so much for the kindness. Thank you. It's a good format. It's a good format. I had one here recently, but I guess I'm just double checking. Yeah, I moved it somewhere. It's not so small that it is hard to read. The colors and the printing, nice and clean. It's a good value. Did you really? You did a 200-page collection of my Lost Pages series in the compact format. I think that there's something very nice about the value, the price point, but honestly, this is also a really easy size to take with you. You can literally toss it, in any sort of a backpack or bag, but if you have to, I can even fit this in like a pocket on a sweatshirt or a jacket. And that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. Got other stuff to talk about. This is going the other size, okay? So we were just talking about compact. Well, DC's trying a different thing too. With Hush 2, they're going to get giant size issues. And I'm not talking about, earlier giant size Spider-Man with like a bunch of extra pages. I'm talking about a big size physically. DC told retailers this week that thanks to the great response they were getting for issue 158, they are now going to issue all of Hush 2 in 11 by 17 inch giant size special edition format. The advantage to that, this is definitely more for the connoisseur of comic book art, because you're getting to see it printed at the same size as the artist works. Most artists anyway. Most art is done around 11 by 17 and then shrunk down a little bit. It helps with the detail and stuff like that. Not quite treasury size. That was sort of a slightly unique format. But yeah. It's not going to be for everyone, but it's big and it's different. I mean, of course, we've got artist editions and stuff, but this is just printing the issue at an 11 by 17. Giant size editions are going to be priced a lot more. $14.99 versus the regular issue $4.99. I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to pick. I wouldn't need to pick up all 6 personally. That's just not. But I might be curious to pick one up just to see what that is like in floppy format. I don't know. That's true. Yeah, it would fit in artist print bags. Yeah. I don't think Frank Miller generally charges. I'm pretty sure I've never seen him have a sign that he charges. The only one I can think of right now that I can think of a couple. Michael Golden definitely charges for his autographs, and I'm pretty sure Rob Liefeld does. But those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. Some people might say, hey, I can only sign so many things, but I don't think most artists charge. It's a good question. Not related to this, but it's still a good question. We need to do compact artist editions where they reprint the original art in mini comic size. That might be a little hard to read. You're not going to be able to fit it in a long box. No, that goes on a shelf. Congrats on being able to charge that. That's great, Beowulf. I mean, someday you'll sell one and it's going to feel good. The longest comic strip has set a record. So, in India, there is an art school called the Dr. D.Y. Patil School of Design, and they created a 2-kilometer-long comic strip using 4,500 illustrations. This is just sort of a fun little bit of trivia. What does this say? Oh, I accidentally cut something off here. I'm sorry. Forget this 1.6 kilometer long strip. I'm going to come back to it. I did a formatting error here. But anyway, talking about this two kilometer one long, the comic strip is, it depicts the evolution of humanity to artificial intelligence. I will say, I went to the college's website. They have a lot of seminars on how great AI will be. I'm not sure that I'm a fan of that. But this was all done by hand. Everybody, like, this is a bunch of students and stuff. 90 students, 10 faculty members, and they made one long comic strip that they put together. It was done in 21 hours as part of an event called Sketchverse, which is like kind of like 24-hour comic book day. It's a 24-hour event, mostly for painting. Since this school has people that are painting and stuff, they were doing that. But yeah. And then this is where I formatted it weird. Before this, Japan held the world record with a 1.6 kilometer long strip. I don't know how I messed up the formatting on that. So Japan was holding the record, 1.6 kilometers long. India decided that they wanted to set a record, so they made a 2 kilometer long one. But I don't think that there is a time limit on this, or so. It's just for fun, and it folds up though into like a sort of comic book size. Like each page folds, so like it can be like just a thick book. You guys should all get together and make a 3 kilometer long one. What would that translate into in miles? I have no idea. I have no idea how to make that conversion. We're going to talk a little bit later about AI, though. I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple things regarding censorship, okay? So first of all, France, the government really, canceled a Beauty and the Beast comic. And the reason this is interesting is the French government, they've been accused of censorship now after they canceled a book order of 800,000 copies of Beauty and the Beast. The plan was to give them free to children for the summer. The government had commissioned Jules, real name Julien Bergeau, very famous comic creator over there, bande dessinée, and he was commissioned to give a modern take to the Beauty and the Beast story. Why not? Famous French story. He said that the government is censoring him because he believes they saw that he made the main character like a person of color, and that's what he believes. He believes that they just decided not to do it as soon as that's what they saw. So, here's a quote. The only reason I can think of for the cancellation is the disgust some people felt at seeing princes and princesses who look a bit more like actual school children of today, he told France's Le Monde newspaper. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. The book is still going to come out. It's just not going to be funded by the government. But he's done the work, and some other publisher is going to pull it out. Yeah, France can be pretty racist. So these accusations are not coming out of nowhere. Instead, they're going to do something like, I want to say, they might be doing like the Odyssey or something like that. They're doing a book of for free. So anyway, so yeah, like the French government commissioned this hugely popular artist and specifically told him, make Beauty and the Beast, but set in the modern day. And it's going to be free for kids. And then when they got it, they said, oh, this is way too mature for 10 or 11-year-olds. And he's like, what's mature about it? Like, what is mature about it? Other than I decided to make the main character, brown. Like, so it sounds like he's got a good point. But whatever, the government ain't going to print it. There's also, thinking of censorship, a Texas bill right now that could make certain manga illegal. I'll explain it as best I can. So Texas right now has a bill called Senate Bill 20 or SB 20. It's also known as the Stopping Artificial Intelligence Generated Child Pornography. That's a good thing, yeah, which would criminalize the possession or promotion of images that appear to depict children under the age of 18 and are deemed obscene. So that was passed already by the state Senate. Now, this is, at the beginning, I go, yeah, okay, good idea. We don't want to let people use AI to try to skirt around stuff and be total perverts. Like, I'm okay with that much so far. But critics of the bill say that it doesn't have any nuance to it to sort of carve out stuff that has literary merit. And they're specifically saying that they're worried that there are examples of anime, manga, video games that could get censored under this bill, with bad faith actors saying like, nope, this, you've got a bill and this fits, like, you know, so that's the concern. All of that stuff, like, it frequently has underage heroes, or at least characters that look underage. And then as far as what's obscene, you know, it depends on context, doesn't it? And something tells me the reason people go after stuff like manga and stuff is because you can just take a image and you're not reading the whole story. You're just seeing one image and that might look lewd. But in context, you're like, oh, you know, that person looks young, but it's like, you know, a magical fairy tale and they're supposed to be hundreds of years old. You know, like they're cursed to look young. I'm just giving a wild example, but I'm just saying one image cannot represent a story. But people use it all the time. This is why comics and manga get attacked. The next step right now is it would need to get passed by Texas's House of Representatives. It seems like that's going to be likely. It's getting support by the lieutenant governor. It seems like it's likely to pass. However, just to back off any fear-mongering, I will say that even if it passes, it may conflict with federal law that has already been decided in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has already sort of ruled on a somewhat similar case. And in that case, federal law trumps state law when the same thing has been addressed. So as long the concern overall here is who defines obscene, because some of it we can all agree on, but a lot of it we're not going to. And I think that then it depends on the story. You know, I think some people could look at something like Chainsaw Man and say like, well, that person looks very young. And you're like, well, that's the artist's style. And they're like, no, that's an underage person, like, you know, getting butchered, or that's an underage person, you know, making out with another underage person. You're like, no, they're supposed to be in their 20s. No, I'm looking at it and that looks like an underage person. Texas going to be Texas. We shall see. That's a fair point. Yeah, Puck in Berserk sort of looks like a nude character, but isn't technically either gender or anything. Is like technically a super old fairy. It's a fictional made up fantasy character. So it just looks like what it looks like. Image has some updates that all sound cool. We do not need another code authority. The Comics Code Authority stunted American comics growth by decades. If you look at the comics in every other country and continent, there's so many more genres. There's so many different people that read comics in Europe and in Asia and in South America. And we just stunted all of that by like making anything mature illegal. So no, let us not create a manga code authority. Let us not. A Texas Chainsaw Man massacre. How did I miss that? I chose the image. How did I miss that? Well done. I give you the super chat. I don't have a way to do that, but thank you. That was good. That was good. So let's talk about some of this cool image stuff real quick. First of all, Rick Remender is teaming up with Farrell Dalrymple. They have not worked together before. Love both of them. Farrell Dalrymple, I don't know how many people will remember this, but he was a winner of that, what was that grant called that was created by the guy who created Ninja Turtles? Oh, it's not around anymore. There used to be this grant you could win to make a comic book, and it was a great way to break into the industry on the indie scene. The Xeric grant. Thank you so much. Yep, you guys knew what I was talking about. That's awesome. Thank you. The Xeric grant. Farrell Dalrymple was a winner of the Xeric grant. Lots of great books. I like Pop Gun War a lot. Rick Remender, I think you guys know tons of his books, or I hope you do. Anyway, they're going to work together to create an all-ages book called, it's a graphic novel, The Terrific Teacups. It comes out in October. It's an original idea about a brother and a sister in London who discover that their favorite characters, these fictional pachyderms, actually exist, and that their mission was to keep gloom away from the city. So that's cute. Todd McFarlane announced a new 5-issue comic set in his Spawn universe, Bloodletter, and that is by Joseph Illage and Tim Seeley on writing duties, with Christian Rosado on art. Follows a mystic. She used to actually work for the CIA, just like Al Simmons, but she is now out to hunt down spawns. And finally, I thought this was cool. I had no idea this was coming, but a trailer came out this week for an open world horror game based on I Hate This Place, also known as F This Place? I forget the curse word that they used. Anyway, it's set for all systems the end of this year. There's a bunch of spawns out there, yeah. Al Simmons was created. His deal was to lead the spawns. He was going to be a leader of other spawns, but Malbolgia had been creating hell spawns for lots and lots of time. Yeah, Peter Laird created the Xeric grant. It was a great way to break in. Oh, yeah, his Omega the Unknown series, that was some wild stuff. So, all cool things. But I have to admit, the ones that speak to me the most, I love Remender and Dalrymple, and I love the idea of an open world horror game based on a comic book. So if you didn't read this comic was so cool. It takes place in this world where this one house is safe, but the area all around it has all sorts of different horror things like aliens and, ghosts and zombies and time travel shenanigans, like all sorts of terrible things around the house at night, but you're safe as long as you're in that house. It's wild. But an idea of like a game based on it, it appeals. I hope it's good. A bunch of British comics artists, really publishers, but that includes artists, are getting together to battle AI. So specifically publishers, for instance, of the Beano, what's that, DC Thompson, are among the founding members of a new trade association. They hope to tackle threats posed by generative AI. The group is called Comic Book UK. It's designed to advise the government on the dangers of training AI on copyrighted art. And so this is from the comic book perspective. There are a lot of artists in England, thank goodness, that are speaking up, using their notoriety, their celebrity, their platform to speak out against generative AI. That includes Elton John, Kate Bush, Paul McCartney, presumably some sort of musicians that I don't love, but I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, and I thought I had more, but yeah, anyway, a bunch of publishers came together. They formed this group. Great. The government needs to hear from the dangers to copyright. You can't train stuff on copyrighted stuff without consent. It's ridiculous. I hope so. It sounds like a positive step. It sounds like a really positive step. I once appeared in an issue of the Beano, by the way. This is Dennis the Menace. Came out the same year as Dennis the Menace here in the US, but obviously a very different character. The Beano is like just maybe like Mad Magazine or something. Not really like satire, but funny comics for younger readers. Not like all kids, but younger. But like an artist in the Beano watched my show and added me into the background of a comic there. So that was funny. Boy, where would I have that? I don't know. I'd have to look for it. Yeah, same day as Dennis the Menace US. Isn't that crazy? Two people, two different countries, both creating comics, both decided to call it Dennis the Menace. Last piece of news. Look at this. Who saw this coming? None of us. IDW is going to co-publish Valiant superhero comics. Hey, EJ, I have not heard of an American one. So if you want to get that ball rolling, it's all your responsibility. No. We did talk earlier, EJ, about Dr. Aphra and your cover, and it seemed to me that people were responding well to it. So congrats on getting the main cover on a Star Wars book. Just wanted to say that to you. I like the Valiant superheroes. I haven't always kept up with them, and there's just as much drama behind the scenes with who owns Valiant and who publishes it as the heroes themselves. But I like Valiants. I like certain heroes. I think Exo Manowar is a fantastic premise. I think Bloodshot is cool. I think Rai is cool. Ninjak is cool. The original like Harbingers with David Lapham, that was amazing. So good. Anyway, today it was announced that Alien Books, they're the people that publish Valiant stuff right now, and IDW have formed a partnership which will allow Alien's Valiant comics to be distributed through IDW's relationship with Penguin Random House. Yeah, Shadow Man. Some of the characters were licensed, like gold key characters like Solar and Magnus Robot Fighter and Turok, but those were also good in the 90s. Let's see. Alien Books is going to retain full editorial control, dictating what is in the comics, but they get the benefit of IDW's distribution, sales analysis, marketing, logistics. Feels like a huge win for Alien Books, in my opinion. Huge win for them. Alien, aside from Valiant, they do publish other stuff. They publish manga. They publish books from Europe and South America. They publish that stuff in English. I'm not an expert on Alien Books, but I saw that they do other things. So good for them. I think that's a good team up. Yes, I should mention, what's that called? I forget exactly what it's called, but they are having some sort of an event to reset things. And so now that is definitely still happening. Okay? I forget what it's called off the top of my head. The Solson universe. Yeah, we need Reagan's Raiders and Samurai Santa books, right? Magnus Robot Fighter versus Predator? I don't think I ever read that one, but that doesn't sound bad. Valiant Beyond, that's the name of their event. Yeah, so Valiant Beyond is still happening. I'm going to close this and give me one moment. I'm going to turn on my camera. We're going to take a look at some comics that came out this week. That's always fun. Trust me. It's always fun. Did I see the day the Earth blew up? What was that, today? I'm going to add a camera here, so Give me one moment and we will look at some of the comics that came out this week, of which there were many. I do it like that. So first of all, look at that. We've got a Jimmy Jams comic. I'm sure he'd be here, but he did just do, what do you call it? I think it's called Planet Con in Kansas City. And I know that Sean Crystal was hanging out with him, so they're probably recovering from that together. But that looked like a fun convention from everything I was seeing on social media. I saw my friend Tony Moore was there. All sorts of great guys. But I do want to just point out briefly, there was a new volume in English of Berserk. And this is one of my favorite manga, so that's the reason I wanted to talk about it a little. If you haven't read it, I do recommend it. But this is the first full volume that did not have anything by the artist and writer Kentaro Miura. He passed away, and it went on a long hiatus where, it wasn't decided what was going to be done. Eventually, his best friend and fellow mangaka, Koji Mori, decided he would continue and wrap up Berserk because he's the only one that Kentaro Miura shared the story with, okay? He's the only one that could finish it. And the art is being done by Studio Gaga, who were the assistants that drew with Kentaro. Generally, if I open up to a page, this looks consistent with how it looked when Miura was the artist. Generally. I will say one of the differences, and it's very subtle, it's not something I can really show you here, it's just something you feel. As you read it, you're just like, yeah, the storytelling just feels a little different. Miura was the creator, and he was a great artist in the sense that he knew how to convey certain information. He would have these huge 2-page spreads that were just crazy intricate of wild things happening. I'm seeing if there's something close. See, this is something, by the way, that Texas would probably object to. There's no gender to this character. This is just a little fairy. And, an elf. Anyway. Anyway, the art still looks really good, okay? It's clear. It's just that it is paced and laid out a little different. It's really hard to explain exactly. Oh! Hey, Jim. Hey, Sean. I was just about to talk about your book. I thought that maybe you were recovering from a full, long convention weekend. But thanks for being in here. That's flattering. No, Berserk is still going. This came out in Japanese a little over a year ago. I have the Japanese version. It was new whenever I was there. At the back here, though, Koji Mori does sort of explain. He's like, this is how we would create stories together. We'd mime them out and act them out to each other. We'd each tell each other's stories. They needed feedback. I think a lot of artists need feedback, and they were each other's sounding boards. And they were best friends for a really long time. It's really beautiful, honestly, their friendship. And he's got an afterword here where he says, look, by nature, this will be imperfect. How could it not be? He's not doing it. He's like, all I can tell you is all I'm going to try to do is tell you everything that, Kentaro told me about how the story would go. That's all I'm trying to do here. But there are some amazing things that happen in this. Things are getting dark. It's Berserk. It's always dark. It's just that there had been some hope. All the characters, Guts, the main guy, this guy, had assembled his allies. He'd finally not just sort of saved the love of his life, Casca, but they'd recovered her memories. She was she was like a child with her mind had been wiped after some really horrible events, and they finally recovered her memories. And then, just then, like their big enemy has shown up, and he completely demolishes this island full of elves and magical creatures and witches that were helping the heroes. They lose one of their party members because she's like, a magical creature. They're like, it's like in Lord of the Rings when they're like, they all got on boats at some point and we're like, hey, we're leaving this world. It's like they all leave this world. It's really sad. And Guts, his emotional journey here, he's gotten angry. He's learned new skills, like when he has bad things happen to him, but he's never given up. But here he's about to give up, because he attacks his enemy in this, and his sword does nothing. And he's like, you know what? Like, as bad as things have been, the one thing I could always count on was this humongous sword that he carries, the Dragon Slayer. I could always count on you. I could always count on that. Everything else has fallen apart, betrayed me. He's gone through every horrible thing you could possibly imagine, just to be clear, like everything bad, if you think of it. But he always at least had his fighting ability and his sword. And this time, like when he tried to attack his enemy, it didn't do anything. The enemy is so strong. It's amazing. And I won't explain why or where it's going. It's too big a story. But it's a really beautiful, epic story. I'd honestly encourage you to avoid the anime until you've read everything, because it's not complete. It's imperfect. It's not a wonderful anime, at least not yet. They need to finish this story. But it's a great manga. This can be a pretty gory and violent book, but I'll tell you what's even more hardcore. I got Jim's latest comic book, which is called Savage Street Vigilante. This is I would call, very successful crowdfunded campaign. He's created this new brand called Defective Comics Presents, where he can satirize things. And if it's not clear, this is a satirization of Batman and the idea of Batman. I was not prepared for just how crazy it was going to go, though, because from the beginning, this is a Savage Street Vigilante who has lost his marbles. I'm being careful and eloquent with my word choice. And he just goes to town on all of his enemies. The artwork, Jim does two things here that I really admire. First, he's leaning into, for lack of a better term, I'll just call it like a street art graffiti style, like with things like the backgrounds or the way he's going to, he loves adding spatter and stuff to just give the art some energy. And there's a lot of energy here. So like the way he's using like different types of tones in the background, like that's a subtle decision, but for a character parodying Two-Face, entirely appropriate. But it's also it's a pretty bold pattern that's standing out. So that's one thing. But then second, he really is leaning into the fact that this is not just for art's sake. This is a comic book. So the panel work has to flow. It can't get too chaotic, okay? You can do big, wild 2-page spreads where, say, we're seeing little inset panels of what the character is clearly observing. You can do like that, and that's not a panel-to-panel storytelling. That's a scene, a moment. But then when we get to the story, it has to flow in a logical order. So that's the second thing I really admire, is that there's an amazing amount of style, but Jim is still telling a very clear story. I never had trouble reading this as a story. And look, it's maybe this isn't for everybody. I love it. I think it's both funny and it's something I'm never going to get with a mainstream book. Even when I read, say, Lobo's Paramilitary Christmas Special by Simon Beasley, that was cool and intense and stuff. this definitely outdoes it in terms of how far they're going to go with the violence. Like this, I can show you, right? Like I can show you this head popping off, or hilariously, I don't want to give the whole thing away either, but like, the Savage Street Vigilante literally cuts the Two-Face character in half. You're never going to get that in Batman. And it gets more extreme from here. Like about halfway through, there are scenes where the character gets intimate with the female villains of the story. But this is one of my favorites, this page, where Savage Street Vigilante is talking to a reporter, and Jim made the decision to just draw Hunter Thompson as the interviewer. And it just meant that I read this going like, any idea what might happen next? Where all this madness goes? It doesn't stop until crime ends for good. I might as well have done my Vin Diesel voice. That killed me. Now, you know what? I want to point stuff out, but I would just be like spoiling jokes for you, okay? Lots of crazy stuff happens in this. Lots of crazy stuff happens, but it is a gorgeous book. I think I see a lot of passion in this because there's so much energy, right? Like you look at this and this is more than just a well laid out Grim Reaper or something. I mean, you've got all these lines moving towards what's most important here. And then the character is sort of like dead, but he's so isolated. Look at how much black there is here. If we just like blur our eyes, we've got like a few key points that are pulling out, and they're almost like negative space more than details. We've got a scythe, we've got lightning, and we've got a skull, as well as, I guess, some bats. If you just blur your eyes, that's like all you can make out. But I love that like all of these shapes are just keeping your eye moving around the page, but also focusing on the important elements. I don't know. Because I think you could glance at this and just be like, oh, this looks sketchy. Like too sketchy. This isn't detailed enough. This isn't hyper realistic enough. Whatever appeals to you is whatever appeals to you. I'm open to a wide variety of art styles in comics. I look at this and I see a lot of attention. Like the fact that, Jim, you're balancing the high energy concepts with, clear composition. It really shows to me a respect for the medium. That's what I see, is a respect for the medium of comics. Jim isn't just drawing like this as a painting. He's making comic books. And I love it. I got to be careful. There is like nudity and extreme violence in here. I don't want to give that all away, but it's a beautiful product. I don't like using that word. That sounds too anti-art. Product. It's funny. It's really funny. That's probably the thing that hits me first. The thing that hits me first, and I don't want to give away a joke, but I chuckled. I chuckled out loud a few times, and I was glad that I did because I want to enjoy this. But after I appreciate the humor, I start like appreciating the art and the approach to the art. And I love that, like, Jim, you're using mixed media to do some of this. We're using screen tones, we're using whiteout, we're using brushes and quills and pens. It creates a lovely, lovely book. I will also say that not everybody in comics knows to do this, but Jim is really good about the marketing side of things. And I'll point this out because I think you can learn from this. Jim uses logos, and he's got like clear links to social media and a website. So if you like this or you wanted more, you can figure it out. You open this up, and the back he's got some like advertising with a QR code. Smart. I get sent in a bunch of indie books, and sometimes I really like them, and I go, oh, how do I plug this person? And I'm looking everywhere for a website or social media, and I can't find that. I think that's really important if you're going to especially be hustling yourself. If you're doing like a crowdfunded book like this, how do people find more? Boom, right there on the back. You open it up to like the back pages that aren't related to the comic, and there's an ad for his next crowdfunded campaign with a QR code to go straight there. You want to see what else Jim does? How about Ink Pulp Live? A description of what it is, the YouTube link, the QR code. And this was flattering. I didn't know that Jim was including this, but he does mention the show we do together on this channel, Trash Movie Bonanza. Again, a link and a QR code. I just think that that's good branding and marketing. I'm really impressed. I think that like when you do a crowdfunded book, you really want to give it. You want to give it your best because this is your opportunity to cut out middlemen and really like make all the profits yourself. And I've been seeing a lot of people do some really impressive things with crowdfunding. Well, obviously it's in the mail, so I hope you get it soon. That's great. I'm glad that a bunch of you ordered it. That's nice. I can't help but come up with hypothetical criticisms. Yeah, but I like it a lot. I like it a lot. And you know what? I'd be honest, if I didn't, I just wouldn't like spend as long talking. And I go, yeah, it was okay. I'm going to be honest with you guys, but I do like it a lot. And I'm glad that I like it a lot because but you know what? I'm not that surprised. There's a reason I like guys like, Jim and Sean. It's because I admire the work. I think a lot of my friends, if not like every single friend I've ever had, has been a very successful person. I'm drawn to people that are smart and work hard and take care of themselves. Oh yeah, EJ. I think that there's so much to like in this in terms of like just looking at the artistic approach. And look like, like I'd say like this is a great example of an artist using some restraint. Like, it's fun to draw the big, violent, crazy stuff. That's fun. That's legit fun. Conversational scenes, you have to find the fun in it to make it good. But, this is some restraint. Like, this is going to focus on pacing and storytelling. This is going to focus on what we need. It's not going to be like super long so that you get bored, but it's giving us what we need, and that's good storytelling. Jim, can't wait to see what you do with your next one. Don't have a lot to say about Dick Tracy other than I kind of enjoy it. It's a good mystery right now where he's going up against the blank. And if you've only seen Dick Tracy in the movie, the blank seems to not be Breathless Mahoney. I picked up this, and I've got a few things to say. Mad Cave, good for them. They put out this book called L.A. Strong. And it's a quick anthology designed to raise money for, it says it right there, a charity comic for victims of the Los Angeles fires. Well, I wanted to get that. I'll do my part to support something like that through comic books. Of course I will. It is good. Oh, let's see. Time for some Mountain Dew sugar-free Baja Blast. Thank you, man. You're so supportive, Steve. It's appreciated. $2 a week. It's a lot. Thank you. All fulfillment should be done by the end of this week. Appreciate your patience, you guys. Well, there you go. So sounds like everybody should be getting Proposition Press mail shortly. I more than kind of enjoy it. But this one I wanted to talk about. It reminded me so much of other charity comics I've picked up in the past, 9/11 stuff. I don't know, different like, natural disasters that have like had books like this. And I don't always find them that satisfying, to be honest. Maybe it's because it lacks a central narrative. They're like, by its nature, it needs to get out fast. So they're always like, an anthology concept. But that's okay. It's just that they're like, I don't feel that they embrace the concept of what a comic book is enough. Like almost all of this is like a page, a writer and an artist. And I'll look at it and I'll go like, well, that's a really nice passage that they wrote. That's a nice piece of art, right? Like, I'll look at that. But it doesn't really feel like a satisfying comic book. I'm not getting panel to panels most of the time, and I'm not getting like a satisfying story. I'll look at this and I go, I like this artwork. I really like it. But it's not that satisfying to me. I'm okay with like getting stuff like this because it's like supporting people. And I don't think that anybody's involved is making a mistake. I'm wondering if it's like inherently like just next to impossible to quickly turn around an anthology book for a charity case and like make it satisfying. I don't know. I love some of the people that are working on this. I'm a huge fan and think of Joshua Hale Fialkov as a friend. So I have nothing that I'm really complaining about for the actual pages. It's just that as a total piece, I don't like read this and go like, boy, do I get a lot of like, I don't get like a huge feeling. But here's another thing that occurs to me, okay? I'm all over the place. Everybody feels the need to write something very, very serious about a very serious event. This is a lot of pages of like heartfelt sentiment to absorb. And I don't think you can do it in one sitting and like truly feel it. Like it starts washing over you a little bit because it's just so much. A story, meanwhile, can go through like different changes, right? We've got like something that's a little tense here. And then we might have a moment of comic relief. And then we're ratcheting up the tension and we're building things off with a big explosive payoff. Do you know what I mean? Like these are all individually good pieces. But it's very hard to take as a whole book and feel like satisfied. Because I'm not getting one story. I'm getting like a very similar variation on like that story again and again and again. And it numbs me more than I want it to. I want to feel for these people. But if I'm just reading all these like sad stories and these, stories about like, people's tenacity and ability to work together. And it's not this specific book. It's like every time I read a charity comic book, I just don't find. I feel like, okay, I've supported something for charity. They all did some good stuff, but it's like it's just too similar, like story after story, banging you over the head, and it numbs you instead of making you super like care about what's involved. Fantagraphics' Anything Goes was a good benefit comic from the 80s. There were multiple issues paying their legal fees from the Fleischer lawsuit. I hope I'm like relaying my concern without like saying anything about any of the people that have worked on this that I think is negative. Like I don't look at any of this and go like, well, this sucks. It doesn't suck. It doesn't. I've become so numb. But I got that too with like a bunch of the different like 9/11 charity books. Whereas if an individual comic wanted to tell a story, there's that famous issue of Amazing Spider-Man. It was written by J. Michael Straczynski. It was drawn by John Romita Jr. And sometimes there's stuff in it that's a little melodramatic, but it's still like one story, one cohesive story. And I actually felt something a little bit more from that than I did from reading some of the anthologies, which were like page after page of like, people weeping or firemen being strong. Yeah. It's a noble sentiment, and I don't want to discourage it. I don't want to discourage it because I do think that this is like, what can we do to help? I as a person that makes comics, I don't know what else you can necessarily do other than use your talent to tell that story. But when you put it all together into an anthology, I guess my concern is that it starts desensitizing you to the issue instead of building on the issue. Doom crying was too melodramatic. Yeah. It's like, come on, dude. You've attacked New York City a million times. Now you care? Juggernaut was there feeling bad, whereas like if you go back and read an issue of X-Force by Liefeld where Juggernaut is fighting X-Force and Spider-Man, he knocks down one of the Twin Towers. So that's comics. I'm going to move on to a book I thought was fantastic. I love crime comics. The premise of this interested me a lot. Out of Alcatraz, written by Christopher Cantwell, art by Tyler Crook. Many of you have probably heard. 1962, 4 prisoners on Alcatraz Island tried to escape. One of them wasn't able to get out of his duct shaft that he was going to sneak through, so he never even made it to the water. The other 3, we've always said they probably drowned. There was never any evidence that they made it to shore. It's part of why the prison was on an island. It was, rough water, shark-infested waters, huge, what do you call it, going through the bay there. There's going to be a really strong current. Very unlikely that you could unless you waited for the perfect conditions, very unlikely you'd be able to swim from the island to shore. But this is a comic. This is historical fiction. In this, these guys sort of have a makeshift boat, and 2 of them make it to shore. And then things go crazy from there because they end up in Modesto, and they end up being sort of involved in some sort of a planned crime involving this lady as a middleman. And she sort of passes for white, but she is black. And, they're just these 2 guys are trying to, not get caught, not raise suspicions, but they're both very different people. There's Frank and there's John. And Frank is definitely, the coldly cynical guy that's like, this is how we're doing it. And you're going to be smart and listen to me. Otherwise, we're both going to end up in jail. And there's John who, his brother was the guy that is drowned in this story. And he's like, oh, I need to call my mother. I need to let her know what's happened. I got to get out of here. I'm feeling like I'm all cooped up. It's a great crime caper. That things are going to go bad for them at a certain point. The artwork here with it's all watercolors on I think gouache watercolor stuff. Very very expressive, but the colors are really what sort of helps set the tone. We'll have scenes in sort of the desert area, and it's all washed out yellows. We'll have the scenes where they're escaping at night, and it's just sort of these muted blues and browns. There's grays when they're talking about the actual crime that they're going to be planning. Just a great crime comic. The premise alone should hopefully sell you. What if these guys did make it to land? What was their goal? But it's based on real people. The art is incredible. It's really, really good. I didn't know there was a sketchbook cover. Darn, I didn't see it. I used to live in San Francisco and visited Alcatraz frequently. I'm excited. This comic is getting great reviews. The deaths of the men was heavily pushed as being a sure bet by law enforcement solely because they couldn't find them. And it was an excuse for them to stop trying. We do follow in this, just to be clear, some FBI agents. So some of that is actually addressed. They're like, because in this we know they're alive, and they're like, hey, the official story to everyone is that they drowned, but just so you guys know, there was a stolen car, so maybe not. They probably did. It's like DB Cooper and the money he took parachuting out of that airplane. He probably, did not land safely. He probably died just falling out of a plane. But maybe he made away with like lots and lots of money. Who knows? I always think of Phil Hartman in So I Married an Axe Murderer when I think of Alcatraz. What did he have to do with Alcatraz? I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I saw that movie. But nice to see you, Eli. Nice to see you. I hope you do. I visited Alcatraz for years at a time. We all know that D.B. Cooper was Loki. Oh, was that part of Loki? Yeah, I sort of forgot about that. That's right. Hartman was the tour guide. I remember that it took place in San Francisco. I totally forgot that Hartman was a tour guide on Alcatraz. Anyway, it's a really cool book, folks. Hey, this was one everybody on the show told me to get. So I did. So I'm a week late on this. Assorted Crisis Events is a book by Dennis Camp and artist, Eric Zawadzki? Yeah, Eric Zawadzki. And it takes place in a world where time has become broken, and so sometimes people don't remember that you work there. And sometimes you're in a world where the Nazis won, and sometimes you're in a world where there are, I don't know, cannibals or something. But we follow this all through the perspective of Ashley, a girl who just has, a boring 9-to-5 living in the city, and she's just trying to get through her day, just trying to get through her day. Boy, I had not seen Zawadzki's art before, but it is gorgeous stuff. It is really, really attractive. Yeah, she'll go to a bar and there'll be like a robot and like, I don't know, like one of the Musketeers or something like that. And it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, obviously on one level, like if you were focusing too much on how this all works and what the mystery of the sci-fi element is, you could honestly get too tangled up in it. That's not the important part. The important part is that it's a girl living in the city, just trying to get by. And if anybody here has either lived in a big city or at least visited one for a while, you can probably get that. Honestly, maybe even in a small town, you can get that. Sometimes it's just so much to deal with. It's like there's just so much chaos going on around you, and you can't focus on any of that because you got to focus on, just paying the bills. And it probably will lead to her getting involved in something timey-wimey, I'm sure. But for now, the focus is on the character. And I think I've realized that what I tend to prefer in comics is a little more of the character-based than the plot-based. It needs to have an interesting plot and an interesting hook to get going. But for me to really get excited about a comic, it needs to be based on the character going through a journey of change. Let's see. The second printing cover is by Filia Bratukin. I feel so bad that I have never read the work of Eric Zawadzki before. It's really good, folks. I mean, it's very clean line work, obviously. And when I look at, like, say, the main character, sometimes I think a little bit of somebody like Art Adams or something, okay? But then she does or Eric does some great stuff with background characters being like a little more animated or something. Oh, I like this. Okay, here's something good. Okay, Ashley's a little drunk, right? So we've got this weird low angle shot of her off balance, and everything, like, it's really not curvilinear perspective or anything. It's pretty flat, just like, really low angle, but it looks like everything's almost warping without really being that warped. And then at one point she thinks she sees a hole and she's ready to give it all up and just dive into it. And it was just a painting for a movie set. But look at the gesture on that, like, face plant. She's like already landed here. The feet slightly inverted, like the arch of the back, the way the fingers are just slightly curled up. It's small, but like that is really good gesture. Really good. That's what I feel like. I feel like sometimes, I think that sometimes there are, especially superhero comics, where things are happening and you care a little bit because you've got the broad strokes of the character maybe. And like there's cool events happening. There's even some that I really like where it's a little bit more like that. But the things that I care about most passionately have a character that I can latch onto. And I can on this. So thank you so much, everybody, for the recommendation on Assorted Crisis Events. I'll also say that it was priced at $4.99, but it's definitely extra big. I don't know how many more pages it was, but it's more pages. It's a good, solid story. It's a good entry point. I'm reading so many comics right now that I've got to be like ruthless and cut some, I think. I've got to start cutting, and I don't know what I want to cut yet. That's going to be the hard part because I'm really enjoying a lot of books right now. It's so hard. Makes you wonder if she stopped going to work, would her paycheck stop as well? Well, she does say that, like, some days, like, you get something weird, like, they don't have a record of you, so you're not going into work. She's like, but I won't get paid for today either. It's a good value. Here's one that's slightly not what I was talking about, though. Bug Wars is by Jason Aaron and Mahmoud Asrar. Great creative team. And I get a little bit of a sense of, like, this main character. Slade Slaymaker is his name. And he's found this mystical amulet that shrinks him down to bug size in his backyard, where there's all these people that are like the size of bugs, and they use bugs as their, like, warriors, like their horses and their mules, etc. And it's this all sorts of different races. But I do sort of feel that this is a little more plot based. It's building on, like, the mystery of, like, what's this amulet? What's the lore of all these different races that live and work together and fight together? And I would say that it keeps me slightly at arm's length right now from connecting to Slade Slaymaker. He's a nerdy teenager. I've got the broad strokes. I've got enough to get involved. And I'll also just say that, like, one reason this is a fun book, though, to read, this artwork by Mahmoud Asrar is pretty fantastic. Beautiful women, like, great poses. Look at these barbarian type men. Like, that's some great shading. Really minimal rendering, but it's there where you need it. Look at this great, like, sort of 1 1/3 page spread here where the characters are walking into sort of a Thunderdome type arena to fight. And this main guy here with the big muscles, I mean, That's actually surprisingly limited amount of lines to represent this. Really strong decisions on where to lay some of these shadows. I just really admire this one character that's central there. Oh, I met that artist at what do you call it? Emerald City Comic Con. He was really, really nice. Yeah, I would say that the main reason is just so that I can sort of have fun doing a show like this, talking about like little aspects on a weekly basis. And I also want to. I care about comics. Okay, like it's my favorite medium. I'm making a living to some degree based on comics, and so I want to support it. And of course, buying trades supports it. But as long as the American system is based on monthly periodicals, those sales need to be justified to even get to the next step of the trade paperbacks. And so I want to support that. I want to support my local comic book stores. Um, so am I making the decisions that are like the most financially smart for me as an individual? Not necessarily. I don't think I'm hurting myself, but I think I'm making little decisions that help the industry slightly. If I support books on a monthly basis that I enjoy, they're more likely to reach it to trade paperback. And sometimes I miss stuff. Sometimes I just hadn't heard the right recommendation, or I didn't find out about an artist or a writer until a bunch of people talk about it. I can't know everything. So there are trade paperbacks that I pick up. There definitely are. But I would say that mostly it's so that I'm like at my comic book store supporting them on a weekly basis and supporting the titles I like. I wish that too. I wish that too. I wish that they were more affordable. I think that there are some things that could be done, but I don't think that the big players care too much about changing things. I think that they are okay with how things are going. And so that's just how it's going to be until it financially doesn't make sense anymore. For instance, if tariffs come through and comic books cost another $1.50, we may see a lot of that circulation drop to such precipitous levels that it may force the industry to go, okay, maybe we need to do more trade paperbacks, right? Like maybe we wait until we've got like, a big story and we can sell that at a better, more affordable price. Maybe we do digital is cheaper. And I'm sorry to the comic book stores, but like maybe we have to make these decisions. I don't know. I hope that we don't have to hurt anybody. But some things may change that are out of anybody's control. I would say I don't quite find it great. I'm glad you do. I am. The art is great. The art is great. The story, Jason Aaron is somebody that I really like a lot of the time, but sometimes I feel it can be a little too plot-based. And in this case, I feel like they're building up a lot of lore, and I'd like to care more about the main character. But it's very interesting lore, and the art is top-notch. Just some of the best that you can get out there right now. No question. Mahmoud Asrar brings it. Very, very talented. Very talented. In a lot of different ways. Really good. Boy, I can't go through all of this. You know what? I'm going to bump something up to the top real quick. A new issue in the Absolute universe. Flash. Written by Jeff Lemire. Loved a lot of different things that Jeff has done over the years. Art by Nick Robles. And I take it like Nick has done a lot for DC in the past. I haven't really come across Nick before. Nick is good. Nick is really good. Look at this 2-page spread of Wally West just sort of like, sort of getting overwhelmed by these speed powers that he's been exposed to. What I'd love to be able to do, I'm going to cover this one in a flash. I'll flash my eyebrows, my eyelashes at you. Blink, blink, blink. That's what pretty girls do when they want to get my attention. They go, blink, blink. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a way to describe Absolute Flash without having to compare it to the existing Flash. I certainly could lay things out like the plot, but I don't think that that would be a very satisfying way to present this. I think I will contrast it with the Flash, okay? Let's go, Mets. Good for you and your loyalty. I admire that. First of all, this Wally West is starting at an age similar to Wally West in the original comics, as in Kid Flash. He's only 15 years old. And we get to know his family life a bit. His father is a colonel in the military. His mother has passed away. And where's a good page to relay this? He and his dad don't get along great. Wally feels very isolated at the various military bases that they PCS to. That's relatable. That's understandable. He's not a jerk, but he's angry. He doesn't like his dad that much, and he's tired of being kept alone. The only sort of person that's expressed some interest in him is Dr. Barry Allen, who's working on some sort of secret project at the base. And we can kind of all guess what that is, right? I mean, yeah, Barry, red shirt, lab coat. Okay, yep, he's the scientist. And whatever. There's an accident that gives him his powers. Who cares about any of that? Let's talk about like what's different about this. Wally goes on the run. What's Flash do? He runs. Wally is on the run. He has this thing happen to him, doesn't know exactly how to deal with it, and he's gone on the run. Metaphorically, that works for me. That's really good. I like that. I think that that's a good starting place. Let's see. How about his rogues? Well, in this, if his dad is a colonel and Wally's on the run, they would probably send out military people, right? Like Captain Cold. And he's got Digger Harkness and, it says Jesse and Lisa. Clearly that will be Golden Glider and I guess a new version of Jesse James, the prank trickster, right? Trickster, yeah. Yeah, I could see things going wrong with this Barry. We don't get to know him too well. Look, all I can tell you so far is teenager on the run, feeling very isolated and alone. I would say most teenagers, even if they have a bunch of friends, they feel alone. They feel like they're the only ones going through something like this. Their hormones, kick into overdrive, and every emotion you experience is amped up to 11. But what I like a couple things. First of all, this is another book with very good art. Very good art. And then I would say I like the reimagining of the rogues. I think that like this Captain Cold looks just absolutely amazing with his big Freddie Mercury mustache. Just this tiny little bit of like fur around his jacket. I don't know. I like it. I think it's a good reimagining there. And thematically, I think the idea of Barry Allen on the run makes sense as a starting point. So we'll see. He looks like Ted Lasso. Yes. Believe. Omni-Man? No, it's not Omni-Man. No. There are other people in comics that have a mustache. Look at that. Now I've got one. Oh, wait. I do have one. I forgot. Have you ever seen Solid JJ's video? First of all, I've never even heard that name, sorry. About Wally West being a Midwestern conservative. I believe that there was a comic where in Teen Titans, right, where Wally West says that he is a Midwestern conservative, but then again, that was like back in the 80s or something, so that meant something very different than today. Back then, that was very middle of the road. Today, that's extremely to the right. Good. Not as good as it's been, but good. Very good. Great, honestly. Surprisingly entertaining. Maybe not that surprising. It is written by Ryan North, and I'm starting to realize I really like his stuff. But this issue specifically of One World Under Doom focuses on the Fantastic Four's reaction to Doctor Doom taking over the world. That's something you need to get into. But you have to also be into Fantastic Four and Marvel Comics in general to appreciate that. Absolute Batman. Pretty badass. I just want to say a couple of cool things about this one. This Batman goes after the enemy that's been set up in the first 5 issues, Black Mask. Look at that splash page by Nick Dragotta. That could be the cover. That probably will be the cover on a reprint, huh? Look at that. That's great. And he gets onto Black Mask's yacht and goes after them. There's like a kid, and this absolute Batman picks the kid up, puts him in a life preserver, drop kicks him. He just punts him. He just punts him into the ocean. That's great. Some of the differences I like are I like having Martha Wayne alive and being an essential character in this world. I also appreciate that this is a Batman that has so many gadgets because he's an engineer. Like this, Batman is being like choked to death, all right, by Garrett, and he just rotates his ears forward and uses them as a weapon to stab. He's just full of gadgets, and I love the gadgets. It reminds me of 70s James Bond. It's fun. Wally West is a Midwestern emo fan of American football. Yes, he is. Thank you for the $2. That's awesome. Absolute Robin origin. Yes, could be. Could be. Oh, man. So it's cool. It's a satisfying conclusion to the first arc. This is a Batman that, will not compromise. Honestly, probably not as efficient as mainstream continuity Batman, but you know what? We need to have a journey, right? We don't want this Batman to, have no problems from the beginning. You almost have to create these super extreme problems in the main Batman book these days. Problems that Batman himself creates and stuff. But this is a Batman that really struggled to go up against, essentially a gangster. And may not be quite as precious about guarding his secrets, which I do feel is somewhat dated these days. The idea of having the secret identity. I think that you would have a secret identity from the public at large, but the idea of keeping that a secret from all your friends and family, I feel like Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the late 90s into the early 2000s kind of torpedoed how well that would work. She explained that she was the Slayer to her closest friends and eventually family, and it was all interesting reveals, but it just made sense. It would be impossible to just keep that a secret from everybody and never have a confidant or let them know who you really are and what you're thinking. the idea that like Peter Parker would like ever get into a serious dating relationship and still keep, most of his life a secret starts to just feel like an outdated concept if you're going to believe in a serialized story that continues. Golden Age and Silver Age comics, you were getting like, a full story per comic and moving on. It didn't really matter. There was a light reset button hit at the end. It didn't really matter what happened before. You just knew the broad strokes of the character. You got an adventure or an amusing story with them. That was that. But if you're going to tell an ongoing story where people supposedly grow and change, I think that the idea of keeping your identity a secret from everybody is a little outdated. And it seems like this Batman may be open to sharing that. Last comic I want to talk about this week that I thought was hilarious was this book called Tedward. Tedward by Josh Pettinger. This is from Fantagraphics. It's a series of small stories that do all still go together. And Tedward is this awkward young man. He's an adult, but he has a knack for making the worst decision he could in any given situation, which leads to him having like really raunchy and crazy adventures. But he's also not the best person, so it's okay to sort of laugh at his misfortune. Like in this, his girlfriend breaks up with him, okay? So he's going to jump out of like this, he's going to jump to his death. And a man stops him. He's like, no, you've got something to live for. But basically all he ends up doing is making Ted join his company. And his company is, I can't show you all of this. He goes to sex parties in like Ghostbusters style gear with like these power washers. And he's supposed to I can't show you any of it. He power washes people after they've had sex. And he hates it. And he's terrible. He's really sort of conservative and like, small town. He's like, I can't do it. Thank you, Shin Matthias. Loved your latest comic tropes and Spawn in Trash Movie Bonanza. Thank you. I hope for some more deep dives like Alan Davis. Love to do Alan Davis. Mike Waringo. Absolutely. I've done Jose Garcia Lopez. I've done one on that. And Alfredo Alcala, I talked about a lot in my episode about the Philippine artists that worked in comics. Amanda Connor, I would love to cover. She deserves it. Shotaro Ishinomori, yeah, very influential. Just throwing some ideas. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. From Uruguay, am I remembering that right? Is that like I'm also looking at the money there? So anyway. Okay, so what else is like, okay, here's another quick example of like how he makes his own life terrible. He falls in love with this girl and she likes him as well. And his job at this point is collecting change from people that rent TV. And he eventually finds out that this lady is stealing the TV. So he reports her to the police, okay? And the police are like, whoa, she's really hard to hold down. She's really wiggly. Help me out. And he helps her out. And she's like, you're dead to me. I don't ever want to see you again. And he's like, you're breaking up with me? That's how naive he is. He didn't understand that getting his girlfriend arrested would lead to her breaking up. And he's devastated by it. I can't help but laugh at his misfortune. He creates it for himself. Oh my God, he gets the craziest jobs. He constantly gets dates, but he messes them up all the time. It's hilarious. It's really funny, folks. Psyched to be at a con with Josh coming up here soon in LA. If in the area, come to the Permanent Damage show. Well, there you go. You'd get both Josh Pettinger and Eli Schwab. That's great. Yes, his hair is another thing that he talks about. Like, he's got this, he likes having his hair done in this very specific way. folks, this book was really funny. It is slightly adult. It's got nudity, but it's all played for jokes. It's not, yeah, I don't know. So if you find that funny, I do. I'd recommend it. It's pretty big. It's $25 hardcover from Fantagraphics, and you can find that on Amazon or something. Here's another, like, I'll just give you a little bit of it, okay? He's got a girl that wants to go home with him. So they stop for condoms, and the guy at like the CVS just like will not stop talking about them and stuff. And he's like saying that like Ted should get the Magnum extra large girth multi-pack. And he's like, no, just the regular ones, please. He's like, the girl's already like, and then he gets like, the guy argues he has to do his job properly. So he forces Ted to come to the back room for a fitting. And this is all while Ted has created what he thinks is going to be a huge moneymaker. He talks to his mom about how he's created pants that will allow you to roll up there's like a little third tiny leg for your shaft, and you can roll it up when it's time to go to the bathroom to cut down on all that extra time unbuckling and unzipping. And he goes on his date in these new pants that he's so proud of. Folks, it's really, really funny. So, yes, he does sort of have the kid and play haircut. You're right, but he's white. I saw that he was there, but he actually had people in front of him the whole time, so I wasn't able to say hello. Just went and checked my mailbox on a hunch, and there was my Savage Street Vigilante. There you go. So that was fun to talk about tonight. Tedward, Savage Street Vigilante, and Berserk were sort of like the three standouts for me personally this week. Those were the three standouts. But I obviously got a lot of books from a lot of different publishers and enjoyed them. You know what? I'll pull out of Alcatraz was also a standout. I'm going to choose my book of the week. Let me think. Let me think. It can't be this version of Berserk because there has been better Berserk. I mean, of course there was, because this isn't by Miura. So that's not going to be my book of the week. So I've got Jim Mafood's Defective Comics presents Savage Street Vigilante, Tedward by Josh Pettinger, and Out of Alcatraz by Christopher Cantwell, Tyler Crook. Crime book, comedy book, satirical superhero, over-the-top violent book. Boy, this is tough. Well, I'm going to get more of Out of Alcatraz, and I think that, like, while I love the premise, I need to see some twists and turns to this before I can make my full judgment call. It is fantastic. Obviously, it's these are the three that I'm narrowing it down to. But I'm going to, wait and, read some more before I decide. But it's very good. So now I've got Tedward and Savage Street Vigilante, and I told you guys that I laughed out loud a lot at this, but you know what? Savage Street Vigilante had me both laugh out loud and appreciate the art form in a certain way. I just say that some of the stuff Jim did for storytelling decisions slightly, for me specifically, goes above this sort of minimalist, lean Claire art style, which I love. But this mostly to me was about the story. And for this, I liked both the story and the art. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it shouldn't surprise anybody, but my pick for book of the week was definitely Jim Mafood's Defective Comics presents Savage Street Vigilante. Comic Tropes After Dark book of the week. That said, highly recommended. Tedward, highly recommended. Out of Alcatraz, highly recommended. Highly recommended. It's some very different company to be in, right? Those are some those are some very different books. And I mean, just to be clear, that was still in a week with stuff like Absolute Flash, Absolute Batman, Uncanny X-Men by Peach Momoko, Bug Wars by Jason Aaron and Mahmoud Asrar. I would say that it was a week full of like a lot of stiff competition by a lot of talented writers and artists. Whoa, Wally says he has an original Tedward piece. Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. All I can say is I think one thing that this week shows that I hope I'm spreading the word on is that there are a lot of different cool comics. There's so many different genres and publishers right now. And when I see some of these anger videos about Marvel's doing this, DC's doing that, I'm like, you are missing out on so many things. Maybe, I don't read most of the Marvel and DC things, but there are still good things that they're putting out. There definitely are. But there's so many other, indie and small press books. So many good things. So many good things. Where can someone pick up the Savage Street Vigilante if they missed the crowdfunded? I would recommend going to jimmafood.com. I'm pretty sure he has some more copies for taking to conventions. I'm pretty sure. I would look there. I don't know how many. Maybe Jim will do another print run or something. But he needed... The nice thing about crowdfunding is it really does give you a really good gauge of how many things to print without, overprinting or underprinting. Someone asked me recently, why would Skybound need to do a crowdfunded campaign for these Transformers comics? It's an Image book. Why can't they just print it? And I go, well, first of all, they are printing it, and you can get it at a bookstore. But you can get it at sort of a discount all at once if you support the crowdfund campaign. But to do that, they need to know exactly how many to make. That's all it is. So I used to think, it was unfair for companies to use the crowdfunding platforms, but I get it. It means that sometimes you can get something at a little bit of a better price. Oh, and that was a question by John Burkett. John has a great book called Feral Star, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, that's published by Eli from Cosmic Wolf. Sorry, guys, it's sometimes hard to keep up with all the different names and books. There's another collection of Josh's work called Goiter from Floating World. I've heard of that, and I want to check that out. I do. Thank you for that. What are your thoughts on digital reading? I barely read digitally, even if it is more cost effective. I get some stuff digitally because it's nice to have less stuff. And if you live in certain parts of the world, you can't easily get some of these comics. So I get it. So what have I done here? I have laid out very lightly a famous scene from a show that I've gotten really into lately called Severance. And I'll just, without spoiling anything, just say that it's about two characters that connect. And I thought I'd just have some fun inking some Bert and Irving art. It's based on a very specific moment from the show. We'll just see if it works. Severance. Just got into it fairly recently. Cosmic Wolf? Did I say Cosmic Wolf? Did I really? Eli, I'm so sorry. I'm tired, and I didn't really eat much today, so I am a little loopy. I am so sorry I did that. Cosmic Wolf. I know that there's no such entity. I definitely know that you're Cosmic Lion. Oh, man. The only comics I read digitally are web comics. I prefer to wait for a series story arcs to be finished and then released into volume form. Did I say that, though? I must have, and I'm sorry. I have no idea how that happened. I don't know how good I am at likenesses per se, but I did make sure to look carefully at this image while I was laying out the sketch, because it's something. It's not just the characters, it's a famous moment from the show, and I'm just doing my own little take on it. um, and mostly just could have been anything, but I just wanted to mess around with some inking tools and see what I can do with my line weights and such, see if I can get any of it done. Werewolf. Werewolf. Dick Wolf, yes. Dong dong. I hope so. I mean, I was looking at him when I came up with it. You should look like Christopher Walken when you're trying to be Christopher Walken. Yo! Best humor comics manga that made you laugh out loud. Lately, the one that I laughed the most at was Tedward. That made me laugh the most. But all time, like, yeah, like anything funny. What would I have said that makes me laugh the most? Oh, that's a tough one. S Train says too much coffee, man, and that is pretty funny. Boy, I don't know. I love the question, and I'm kind of frustrated that I can't instantly decide. I'm a little bit of a snob when it comes to comedy, first of all. I will say that. I really like stand-up comedy and sketch comedy and stuff, but I'm really like nitpicky about what works as a joke and stuff. It would probably be annoying to some people, but I really like funny things. And what would be funniest? I don't know this one. Ninja Show. Superior Foes of Spider-Man is very funny. I like Spy Family. I don't know if it's the funniest. It's funny. Try Meg and Mog if that condom scene cracked you up. Meg and Mog. Appreciate it, Winston. Yeah, Slam Dunk starts off very funny, and then it kind of gets a lot more serious. Damn you for even suggesting that to us. I feel terrible. I'm not coming up with any good ideas. I don't know. I kept thinking of like a few that like are funny, but I don't think that they're like they've made me laugh the most, Like I think a lot of Bone can be really funny by Jeff Smith. I think who's the artist? It's about like four different nerds that all hang out together, but like they're all terrible people, basically. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know. I'm stumped. Not Revenge of the Nerds. I'm thinking of comics. Yeah, the Eltingville Club sometimes makes me laugh. You know what? I would say Evan has made me laugh more, though, with Milk and Cheese. Milk and Cheese. Chew. Some funny stuff in Chew. Just trying to get some broad strokes done real quick, and then I can leap back to the chat. Has anybody else watched Severance? It's a pretty good show. Are there any other good shows that are on like right now that I might not be watching? Because I'm not watching much for TV right now. I do like Don to Don a lot. And I've said that on the show a lot. Major Bummer by John Arcudi and Doug Monkey. And, you know, by that same token, man, some of the original The Mask stuff that they did, pretty awesome. Common Side Effects. Common Side Effects. I don't think I've read Common Side Effects. Common Side Effects is a great show. It's a show. I did just ask for shows. It's from the creator of Scavenger's Reign. I don't know that one either. Common Side Effects. Okay. Watching old Doctor Who, Tom Baker. Sure, can't go wrong there. Righteous Gemstones is good? Okay. Bunch of people saying Common Side Effects is good. Another person saying Righteous Gemstones. Yep. Pantheon. That's the first I've heard of that one. Pantheon. Appreciate the recommendations, folks. Thank you. I don't know if I mentioned it. It's not super relevant to this, but I changed jobs. I'm still at the same company, but I changed my job. I'm no longer doing car sales. I now work in the business office. So I'm in training, learning a bunch of new stuff. I miss my coworkers that I got to like talk to all the time in sales. I get to see them still, but not as quite as much. I do miss that a lot. I love my coworkers there. I just got to a point where like sales was starting to be kind of stressful, and I wanted to find a way to have a little more time with my wife. And I think that this is going to do that for me. So that's good. It's all positive. I don't want to get like too into the weeds on the work and everything. I don't think anybody would find that especially interesting. But anyway, just keeping you updated on what's going on. Yeah, you know what? I'm pretty happy with these likenesses. I think I just need to work on exactly how I represent the hair and the highlights and stuff like that. And then if there was even more time, I'd do some background stuff. They're meeting in sort of a like a botany or area filled with a bunch of ferns and plants. It's pretty. My 600-pound life, geez. Matlock? Full Circle from Steven Soderbergh on HBO Max. Mike Judge and Jeff Daniels are producers. Oh, are they really? That's solid. I like hearing that. Bunch of people saying Scavenger's Reign is fantastic. Interesting. I thought comic book artist is your full-time job. No. First of all, definitely not. I only draw a little bit here and there. I like drawing, but I do not get paid to draw. I don't get paid to draw at all. Like, not even a penny. Unless maybe I sell an original piece of art here or there. I've got a day job and I've got YouTube. And I guess YouTube does make me more. So, like, technically, I guess I'll call YouTube my full-time job. But I have intentionally made a lot of decisions that I think a lot of people would say are not smart, but I don't monetize YouTube as much as I could. And I've made that for very specific reasons. For instance, I've decided that I don't want to present shows with lots of interruptions. So I manually tell YouTube not to put mid-roll ads on my show. That's something that costs me money, but I don't want to do a show with ads in the middle. I'd rather just present my show. I very rarely accept sponsorships. I turn those down most of the time. I just don't think most of the things that are pitched to me are relevant to the show that I'm making or my audience. But that is, another area where I could make more money. And I'm a little more open to adjusting that. Like, if I think the product is at least good. For a long time, I just turned them down no matter what. But I do need to be smarter about where I earn money. So I might be willing to take some more of that. But for now, I'm saying no still. We'll see if that changes. We'll see. And I don't do like the shows on like Whatnot or that. Lots of places along those lines have approached me and said like, hey, why don't you do live claim sales? And I love watching live claim sales. It's just not what interests me for making content. I want to either do analysis or like deep dive review on like film per se, like with Trash Movie Bonanza, or I want to do, like just sort of like news and live stream art. So I'm just saying, like, that's why I still have a job during the day. I don't know. It probably isn't smart, but I think I'd get burned out if I monetized everything too much, because then it just turns it all into work. It's tough. It's really tough. Anyway, I hope it means that like the show itself that I produce is more entertaining because of those decisions, without like interruptions or like things that aren't relevant. But I don't know. I only know the way to do it the way I know how to do it. Let's see, The Expanse, Silo, Bar Rescue. I don't know. I don't know if it would stress me out or not to do like a live claim sale. I like watching them. I just don't want to deal with like buying inventory and flipping it. I just don't think I'd be good at doing it. You have to do what makes you happy. I'd be happy if I was rich. I promise I'd be happy if I was rich. Probably not. Seems like most people that are super rich don't seem very happy, so I don't know. Maybe they just don't know how to appreciate what they've got. They should give it to me. I promise I could appreciate it. I obviously reviewed and went over a lot of comics this week. Were there any that you guys read that you think I missed out on? You know, I've seen that one at conventions and I haven't read it. I haven't read that. Is that a really good one? What else? Zatanna. Two people telling me Zatanna. Okay. Speaking of rich, I want to see a video about mega corporations in superhero comics. Never really thought about that. I think financial stability can give you the time and stability to pursue happiness, but being rich is just needless excess. I bet you're right. There's definitely a middle ground. Batman and Robin, Wade and Somni. Yeah, I can believe that. They're both people I really, really like, so that makes sense. I need more Christopher Walken on Saturday Night Live. He's not too old to do that, right? He's so funny. Oh, who is your favorite actor? You know what? I won't put any limitations on it. Who's your favorite actor? Like somebody that you'll watch no matter what they're in. I'm not sure if I've got one right now, to be honest. Oops. Bill Murray. That's awesome. Michael Fassbender. Ryan Gosling. Michael Shannon. Gary Oldman. Troy Baker. Forrest Whitaker. Whoops. Michael Shannon again. Timothy Chalamet or Robert Pattinson. Also Gosling. Willem Dafoe. Tom Hanks. It's interesting that a bunch of people went with more sort of character actors than like lead actors. It's cool. It's cool. Yeah, just winding down then. Just gonna throw in a little bit more ink here and call this a night. Have some dinner with my wife. Maybe we'll watch another Severance. I don't know. I had fun tonight. Thanks so much for joining me. Not as much crazy news this week. as last week. Last week a bunch of people came, established big artists had big things to say about Marvel, and there's that Stan Lee documentary. So there was a bunch of big stuff to talk about last week. This week, more just sort of like, here's a few new comics that are coming out. Here's a few things that are happening in other countries, other states. But yeah, that's okay. Sometimes that stuff's fun to talk about. You know what I need? I need a technical pen that works for a specific way of feathering something before I finish. Is that working? That's working. Okay. Oh, that's nice of you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. The diamond auction will bleed into next week's news cycle. I think so. I think that we'll see something come out of that. I bet you're right. I hope, no matter what, that some of the indie publishers and the small press publishers are going to be able to find good distribution channels. That's what I'm hoping for after everything finishes its fallout. There will have to be a way. The one thing I will say about indie press is indie comics have a way of figuring out how to get to people. They're versatile because they don't have to change big corporate structures to figure it out. If one company can't do it, you're going to find a way to do it yourself, whether that's crowdfunding or self-publishing or something. There's going to be a way. But I want to see some of my favorite small press publishers make it out of this with easy ways to figure out how to do their distribution. That's what I want. There's going to be a way. I just don't know what that will be right now. There's going to be some uncertainty for a little bit, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking about the most with whatever happens to Diamond. I'm curious what'll happen to the small press and indie books. It's hard for me to guess. But I guess if I could figure that stuff out easily, then I would figure it out. Oh, you heard the kitty? Favorite Turturro and walk-in performances. For John Turturro, probably have to go with something by the Coen brothers. You have to go with Barton Fink or who's in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, right? That was him? Yeah. For Christopher Walken, best maybe Deer Hunter. I know that was a long time ago, but it was a really exceptional performance. Yeah, I guess those are old choices. I'll say Barton Fink and Deer Hunter. I did not hear that, but I also have to admit I didn't watch that show. I was always aware of it, but I never watched it, so I don't know it that well. I don't think I've seen Miller's Crossing, now that you mention that. I think that's one that's always been on my sort of to-do list. You know what I was thinking of recently for a movie I want to rewatch is, maybe it's been talked about too much. I don't know. But I feel like it could be a good one someday on Trash Movie Bonanza, would be Punisher Warzone with Ray Stevenson. I think I'd like to do that one someday. But I also have a bunch of horror movies. Jim and I haven't dipped deeply into horror lately. And I think we need to do some horror. We've done all sorts of weird schlock and weird superhero stuff, but we started it because we both loved exposing each other to phrasing. Just sharing crazy horror movies with each other, and there's a few that I would like to do on the show. I don't know if it plays anywhere, but there's a really weird one called The Boneyard that like had one of my characters' favorite names ever, Mrs. Poopenplatz. Like, I just love that name, Poopenplatz. Big Lebowski and Deer Hunter. Okay, a lot of people saying I should watch Miller's Crossing. Got it. That's fair. Brainstorm. I mean, that was with Natalie Wood, right? Brainstorm. I think I've seen it. If it's the one I'm thinking of. I know I said like a second ago I was about to end, but sometimes I get just too focused on wrapping up a certain amount of art and I can't put it down. Oh, sure. Yeah, well, we did do the ninja movies, but for Hong Kong cinema, I think this was a cheap one from Hong Kong. Robo Vampires. I want to do that one someday. I don't remember it very well, to be honest. We have to do Basket Case. It's a possibility for sure. The Man Who Wasn't There, Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink are my top 3 Coen brothers. Got it. Nice. Haven't really done anything on that autobiographical comic since I drew like most of a page on the live stream. Yeah, maybe that's what I should be doing instead of weird like fan art, is like something actually productive, like just working on a page. That's all right. You've guilted me into it. I'll do more. What a fool believes. All right. I think that'll have to do it for tonight on that piece. I know that probably isn't super satisfying. But I had a great time tonight. Thank you all for joining me. I'm going to finish inking this too. And I think what I'll do is I'll bring like 1 or 2 pieces of original art to my signing this Wednesday, just in case. So, yeah. An auto-bio comic about my YouTube channels? I don't think anybody really cares about that. Videodrome's awesome. That's a great movie. A Polish vampire in Burbank? Never heard of that. Wow. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. I had a good time. Hope you liked the new intro at the beginning. Again, my recommendation of the week was, where did I just put it? Savage Street Vigilante. There it is. And my runner-ups would include Tedward by Josh Pettinger and Out of Alcatraz by Christopher Cantwell and Tyler Crook. So those are 3 books that I really do recommend. I had fun drawing, and I'll see you again next week. So until then, keep reading comics. Bye.